Ready, set, go.
Welcome to The Sweet Spot, an UpDog podcast. I'm Andrea Morissette.
And I am Jack Fahle, and we are your hosts today.
And today we have two guests. We have both Jason Rigler and Kat Fahle. So give it up for both of our awesome guests today. Woo woo!
All right, so to get us started today, this is the kind of wackiness we have, Jason. This is really more like a morning zoo radio show. I don't know if you're ready for that, but that's usually what we do.
Second date
now, to get
updates.
us started, Jason, since you have not been on the podcast before, can you just tell us a little bit about where you are located in the country, your local dog club, and tell us about your dogs?
Thanks for having me on the podcast, guys. Long time listener, first time caller. So currently I'm in Louisville. That's how you say it, in case you're wondering. Louisville, you're supposed to say it like you have rocks in the back of your throat. Louisville. So now you're all Louisville experts. Just outside of Louisville, currently sitting in my store, Rue's Holistic Pet Supplies. The local club, started by a lovely lady named Kim, is called Kentucky Flying Canines, KY Flying Canines on Facebook, if you want to keep an eye on all the cool stuff we're up to. And dog-wise, that was the last question on that one, right, Jack? My dog update?
Yeah.
Well, it's been a challenging couple of years for me with dogs. I've lost a couple over the last few years. Technically, I'm down to one personally owned dog at this time. Zoom, the Border Collie, a 4-year-old. He's a world champion in Sport DA with Skyhounds, and I also have the opportunity to play with my fiance's Whippets. She has 4 of them. One of them is 14. That one is not playing, but the others are obviously, really talented, fast, wild frisbee catching beasts. So they're fun to play with.
Awesome.
That was it.
So we have Jason and Kat with us both today because our topic, Dre, you want to tell us about our topic and how we decided to start on this topic?
Yeah, well, the topic today is actually from you guys because we finally asked the question. We've been doing these podcasts and we hope that you guys had all kinds of ideas of stuff that you wanted to hear about. And you posted so many great ideas that Kat and Jeff made a big list. And one of the ideas that you guys gave us was to see how UpDog started. And so we thought it would be perfect to have the original 4 founders on a podcast to talk about how UpDog came about one day on a napkin. So that's why we're here today.
So just to kind of set the stage too, I want to add to what Dre said that many of you know, many of you probably don't, but the UpDog team is comprised of 6 people, the 4 people you see right now on the podcast, and then 2 other folks, Brian Batchelder and Babs Mahoney. And our plan was, just like Dre said, to talk with the 4 of us first, because this is kind of the 4 of us got started having conversations around things. But the reality is UpDog would not exist if it weren't for all 6 of us. Each of us brought separate components that just kind of came together and made it happen. If we were missing one of our team members, I don't think UpDog would be where it is today. And so our plan for the podcast was to start with the 4 of us. And then we're going to bring in Babs Mahoney one day as a guest, and then bring in Brian as a guest as well, separately. Also, I'm interested because it's been 10 years since we started UpDog, and so occasionally we have conversations about, the good old days or whatever. But I'm interested to just see, what is the recollection of folks as to how things got started. So I'm excited to hear from Jason today. But I want you guys to know we'll be hearing from Babs Mahoney and Brian Batchelder on future episodes of the podcast. So definitely listen out for those as well.
Okay. All right. First question, from your recollection, tell us how UpDog first got its start. So this is a question for Jason. He's our official first guest today.
All right. Well, many, many moons ago, I don't know. So Jack, the funny thing is I get to talk about this regularly, at least every month, because in the judging classes, I'll always share like, oh, I kind of remember, something will come to me and I'll be like, oh, I remember how that started, or oh, I messed that up. I usually remember cool things about back in the day. But as for getting started, look, I'm no historian. That is not my strength. I'm more of a forward-looking guy. But to the best of my recollection, we were sitting in some sort of restaurant. As legend has it, it may have been a steakhouse. I'm not really a steak guy, so that would surprise me. And I think it came out of a conversation around freestyle. There was some, I think disgruntlement around judging, and
Disgruntlement.
yeah, you can Google it or look it up via Meta AI. Be helpful too. We may have just come from, an event or something, probably, because that's usually why we were out eating together. And it was just the four of us, and I don't know. I mean, I just remember that we were moving things around on the table, salt shakers and packets of sugar, and we were talking about games. Maybe Forward Play was the first one, but I think the impetus was around freestyle judging, and then it was around like some of the challenges clubs were having around the country. So if that's the best I can give you, as to my recollection of how it all began.
I wonder if Kat has, because that's funny, because half of the things he said, I don't remember. And the things that he forgot, I remember. So, Kat, what do you remember from that night?
Well, it was Outback Steakhouse to be
It was,
specific.
yeah.
And it wasn't just an Outback conversation. Like we had conversations in y'all's living room. I remember that distinctly too. Now, I don't know what came first, the chicken or the egg in that regard. I think Outback was the first
Outback was first, I
conversation,
think.
but I remember multiple like conversations in y'all's living room. And I don't know how I don't remember it being super freestyle oriented. I mean, I think being disgruntled about freestyle is what prompted all of the conversations for sure. But like the actual salt and pepper shaker, making things on the table, I think that was, in my recollection, that was a little less freestyle oriented and just a little more about making games that would engage people at a easier stage, because we would have the conversations about my agility friends that I would invite to come out to CFDDC events, and that they would come, once or twice and be like, yeah, that was really fun. My dog really likes it, but I'm never going to be as good as all these people, and never come back. So that got us talking about entry points into the sport and making it easier to start the sport, but yet create something that is challenging for even the most experienced players. Whether or not that whole conversation happened at that Outback table, I don't remember, but it happened within that month or two of conversations we had there.
Yeah, I remember the Outback for sure. And I remember the sugar packets and the salt packets and stuff. But I definitely think we were down the road a ways in our thought process of like, at least hypothetically. I mean, honestly, I don't know that I ever actually thought it was really going to happen. It was just kind of like one of those things where you just talk about things and you're like, yeah, wouldn't it be awesome if we just started another organization and we did it this way or that way? And that story, there's more to that story that I'm sure will come out when we talk to Babs too. But I remember, for some reason, I remember we were in our yard and there was like a fire going on and we were sitting around the fire talking. I don't know if I just made that up in my head.
That happened like a month or two later. That happened at the P-Vibe camp here.
Okay, and that's when we talked
That's when we told Ron about it.
And that's when
he connected us with Babs.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
Babs was connected because of the premiere event in Michigan.
Right.
So the whole connected with her was because she was connected with people in Michigan and could help us get our first like public event that wasn't on the Fahle property. So that was really the breakthrough for UpDog, was premiere.
And Ron was like a linchpin in connecting those, because if we hadn't said something to Ron about what we were working on, and if Babs hadn't said something to Ron about what she was working on, those two wouldn't have come together. And that premiere event is what kicked everyone's butts in gear to actually make it happen.
Yeah, otherwise we'd still just be at Outback talking about, talking shit about freestyle or something. I don't know. Like I don't think we would have, again, if the 6 team members hadn't, like, if just everything just happened in the right timing and the right, like, connections, and if it hadn't happened that way, we wouldn't be here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really good. That's a really good point, Jack. I think that's key. Like Barn Hunt started about the same time we did. Dock diving, the NADD version of it started about a year before us. So there was really this explosion of these like major sort of alternate dog sports, we could say, at that point. So we were right time, right place, I think. And which is indicative too of like what's happening right now, even maybe right time, right place. Sorry to switch topics a little bit, but I love that you're at the start of this like podcasting thing, because podcasting's been around a long time, but right now mainstream media is on a massive decline and podcasting is about to explode, right? People are going to turn to podcasting a lot more for education. And so I'm excited for us again being at the right place, right time with that. So hopefully that trend continues for UpDog. But really, that I think we should shout out Ron again, because not only is UpDog a thing because Ron connected Babs and the four of us, but also Ron, in a sense, helped connect the four of us too, right? He was a big part of our foundations and our growth, and I think it's always really valuable to shout out the people who played a role in getting us here. And hopefully
Ron-
someday, looking back at UpDog, 10 years, 20 years, hopefully people are like, yeah, UpDog inspired me. And I think we heard a little bit of that like from Ben, right? When you guys interviewed Ben and he talked about like the video games, that was like our big start in disc, something like that. So we get to hear those other people's origin stories over and over again.
Yeah, and I don't know if we've mentioned it. We keep saying Ron, but for those of you that may not know, we're talking about Ron Watson from P Vibe, Positive Vibe.
And
So
April.
he, like Jason said, he definitely brought the four of us together. For me personally, laid a huge foundation in terms of what I do for disc. So if you get a chance, check him out. Ron Watson, Positive Vibe.
It was Ron in April also.
Yes,
Absolutely.
of course.
Yep. Yeah.
So she was a major force for me in the beginning of my career, and she was a big part of P Vibe for me too. So
Yes.
All right. So not that we're totally done with this question. I don't think we are, but like just to add to it, like why did we think that the world needed another disc dog organization? I mean, there were already like a handful of them. Like, why did we feel like we needed to throw another one in the mix?
That's my oh, I love that question, because that's the stuff I love to talk about: the mission, the vision, the goals, what are we up to? And as I remember it, Kat already touched on it a bit, but there were a couple things we saw around the world. It was a small world, okay? But what we saw was clubs having a lot of what's the word, like attrition, a lot of fallout. Like clubs would rise and fall very often. And I don't know if this again, I think we're all going to have different perspectives, but we wanted to give clubs more to grow on than just having clubs that are propped up by like one great player or one or two good players and the club revolved around them. So we wanted to have a system that would allow clubs to be really healthy outside of just who's on the podium was one thing. We wanted to have, and then we were like, oh, an achievement system inspired from online gaming and playing games on your phone. What would be compelling and engaging for people? And so the problem was keeping people engaged. And the solution, to a degree, was this sense of achievement, right? What could people earn? How could we have people level up? But here, Jack, Dre, Kat, here's why I'll call us out. I don't know that we've really fully executed the vision of achievements that we've had for 10 years. And so part of what's there for me now in this conversation on this slice of why UpDog is what is the future of achievements, right? Remember, we talked about we wanted people to get updates on like, oh, you're 11 points away from your your Duke McLeod or whatever, right? You've got 99 golden receiver awards. You should get your 100th, right? Get out there this weekend. So I think there's so much more available to us from the perspective of achievements and engagement, but we've done a good job of building a system on achievements to help people engaged, like Ken and Ashley have evidenced in your interview on, when you talked about special events and they talked about UpDog X.
Yeah, I remember vividly the conversations about like the video game system. And Jason, I think you pretty much brought that conversation to the table because you
You're
were
gonna
always
def-
trying to get me to play, I don't know, some game with killing zombies in it or something. And you're like, yeah,
Probably.
at the end of this, it tells you like, here's your shooting percentage and here's your this and your that. And you've got all this data and you can look at it. You can try to get better the next time that you go. And like, I know Jason was definitely a champion for that and bringing that to us. And I think that sort of also, I was thinking about this morning. I think that sort of led us to the name UpDog, but I also don't recall exactly how we settled on that. I remember that there were other names.
One personal victory in life. That was my pick.
Like, I don't remember. Dre, do you
No,
remember like how did we come up
tell
with
the story,
UpDog?
Dre.
Well, it's based on the joke, "What's up, dog? What's up with you?" So like I remember we were coming up with names. That was like that's literally all I remember about it.
You don't remember this? I will tell it.
Remember.
I'm telling
Right?
it, Dre. So Dre, I would kind of figure things out. Like she would, want to trick me or play a prank or something, and I would figure it out a little bit. And one day Dre comes in the room or whatever and is like, there's some UpDog on the front porch for you. I go, what's UpDog? And she goes,
I don't know what's up with you.
yeah. And I just died. I just thought, I was like, oh my God, you got me. And I never forgot that. And so when the naming conversation came up, that was the inspiration for it. That joke, that trick that Dre had played. Oh yeah, UpDog. That's perfect. The only problem with UpDog was the competition with the joke. Do you guys experience this every day? I do. People are like, "Hey, what's UpDog?" And I'm like, "Oh man, like, is
I
this a
tell them
trick?"
every time, and then I explain UpDog.
Right. That's
But I
my
think
memory of the name.
I think when we heard that as a possible title, I do think that we were all like, oh my God, that's it. Like, I don't even think it
Oh
was
yeah.
like, all right, well, we have this one, and this one.
Right.
I just think as soon as I heard it, I was like, totally,
I
that's
can't
it.
even think of any other names we talked about.
Yeah. And I think it just went in perfectly with what, Jason had brought up with like kind of the video game and the leveling up, which just matched it really nicely. So that's, I believe, why we settled on that. But I don't ever remember being like, no, I don't like that, or it's between these three. I feel like as soon as I heard that, I was like, yes, that's it.
Yeah, I remember
I
us,
still have the original logos and stuff too. When we were like picking our colors, I still have all that stuff saved. I saw it recently when we were going through podcast planning stuff, like when we had the pink and the orange reversed and we had all different colors everywhere. It was really cool to see all that.
yeah, I think we talked about the colors more than the name.
Right.
Because I
Yeah.
remember I was not a fan of pink and orange at first. I'm like, no, those don't go together. Because I'm a very matchy person. I was like, nope, those don't go together. I can't stand it. But then once I saw them together, once you put up like modeled up a logo, I was like, okay, I like it. I'm in.
And this is back before Babs and them did any of the design stuff. So we did
Yeah,
all
at
that.
this point we didn't even know Babs.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't. We had met her once or twice, but
We didn't know her the way we know her now. But yeah, we did all that design stuff between the four of us, and then we partnered up with Babs, and then really good design stuff started. I was like, okay, I'm gonna just edit from here on out. Okay, so next question. We were worried about how UpDog would be accepted. Would it be accepted by current disc doggers, runners of other organizations, and newbies in sport? And this is a great question because we've seen a lot from a lot of these. So, that was a concern for us. would UpDog be accepted as a new organization with existing players, new players? Would it grow the sport?
I think that we expected there to be some resistance. Um, anytime you introduce something new, like give any new technology, anything new, and people are like, I don't know about that. I think it was adopted okay. Like the people who wanted to play games adopted it pretty well. But I think we also knew, I remember with Cat, for whatever reason, it's more vivid for me with Cat, where we talked about we just need to bring in new people. For example, agility players, fly ballers. We really wanted crossover sports. We knew that our audience was mostly going to be new players, not existing players at first. That it would be a long, I think we knew that, right? That it would be a long climb. It would take us a while to win over the community. Now, I would say freestyle has been the longest battle, and maybe we're starting to take some ground now, right? That freestyle is, but on the other hand, guys, it's been 10 years. And so it may not be that we're winning over like all the existing freestyle players. It
Built
may
our
just be
own.
that, yeah, a whole new community of freestylers is like, oh yeah, UpDog freestyle.
Have something bad.
What do you guys think on that
You don't
question?
need to raise your hand, Kat. This is the
Kat, you're up.
podcast. You just shout it out.
And so on that topic, Jason, very early on, I don't know if y'all remember this, but we tried to do like a ambassador program to where we reached out to people, existing people in the disc community, to kind of get them engaged in UpDog. And we like kind of identified people that we were, friendly with and that we thought might be interested. And that pretty much fell on deaf ears. So that was our like first clue that, okay, this is not the group that we're going for. Let's go get our own group, which we were planning on.
Which was the catalyst for it anyway.
Right.
So.
New people into the sport was always the main thing. We just got a very early look into the old timers were not going to engage in it as quickly as we thought.
Old timers.
Yeah.
Get off our lawn.
I mean, I'll be honest, I was hurt. Like I was super excited
for that for a long time, Jack. You and I fought for that for a long time.
Well, and I mean, freestyle's one thing, and even before that, because freestyle wasn't one of our first 3 games that we came out with, but like even before that, I was just super excited about this. Like, we had all these cool ideas. I felt like we were really going to be well received. And to be honest, like, not everybody, but I would say most of the current disc doggers were just kind of like, we're fine, we're doing our thing, like, and some of them that we reached out to, like Kat said, some of them that we reached out to were like, no, I don't see us doing that. And I was just like, I remember feeling like, oh man, like that, I took it personal, like, these are things that I really thought were going to be great, and people are just like, no, thanks anyway.
Which I mean, like, I'm one of those people who's resistant to change. Like, I'm not a big fan, just not part of my personality. So I get it from their perspective, but I really thought that reaching out to them on a personal level, being like, hey, we want to engage you early, we want to bring you in as like this, ambassador thing. Like, I thought that would make a difference, because for me, that would make a difference for me if someone did that. But nope. Felt on flat ears. I was like, okay.
Yeah, we'll be mentioning who these people are at the end of the podcast and putting a star next to the ones that I still hold a grudge to.
No, we will not.
I don't remember I don't remember feeling that, Jack. I remember feeling the exact way I feel right now. I love these games. Like, I love UpDog. I feel like an idiot how much I love UpDog and playing these games. And I don't think anyone else's lack of enthusiasm for it, I don't know that it really registered to me, or that I just can't remember it. Well, you touched on freestyle, and so I want to touch on things real quick. One, I wish I could be part of that Babs podcast that you guys are going to do, because I love that story. I love that story so much, and how that came together and that event. So I just wanted to throw that out there. But I think in regards to freestyle, Jack, the rubric you created for judging freestyle is the gold standard, in my opinion, right? I wish everybody really got to know it and understood it better. Take the freestyle training, get to know that rubric that we use for judging freestyle, because here's the thing, and I see this in other sports now. So Sid, my fiance, is involved in coursing. 3 whippets go out, they chase a thing around a field. Super cool. And then one or two judges. I don't know why the number changes. I don't understand the sport all that well. But then they all write down a number based on like 5, 6, 7 criteria. I don't know. Yeah, Kat, Dre, Jack. Guess what the scores are? They're always within 2 points, right? Not always, but mostly, right? They're going to get I forget the scoring, but 37, right? And this one got a 36, and this one got a 38. That was a really good score, something like that. And if we stick to it, when we follow it, your rubric is amazing, because you will see a full range of scores. You should see scores, 2 to 3 to maybe 8. And I know you guys have touched on the freestyle stuff a lot, but I just wanted to hit on how much I love and how genius I think that freestyle rubric is.
Yeah. Thank you, Jason. But there's been a lot of conversations recently on the DisDog discussions page, on the UpDog discussions page, about, things that should or shouldn't be, things that should or shouldn't fall into the judges' perspectives. And well, as much as I Facebook, so like every now and then, I keep putting out there, like, I really think it's up to the organizations. Like, whatever that organization values should become part of, their explanation of their freestyle, whether it's a rubric or a paragraph or whatever it is that they explain to their judges. Hey, here's what we're looking for. I think that's the only way that you're going to help the judges out, because it's really hard as a judge if you're sitting down and you're supposed to be looking for things, but you don't know what those things are. Like the organization hasn't told you. So anyways, I keep pushing for that. I think it's important. And ours is not perfect either. We keep tweaking it as we see the need. There, Dre, we did it. Brought it to freestyle.
Back to the original
You were the first one to bring it up. I'm so proud of you. That's 2 in a row.
Back to the
Look at
original
my
question.
self-control.
Good
Go ahead,
job.
Kat. Original question.
Original
Yeah.
question. There were obviously multiple clubs that did embrace UpDog right away.
Minnesota.
And who said, yes, please come teach us how to do it. I've got on my Calgary Disc Dog or Club shirt. They were one of our early adopters. Up in New Hampshire, Granite State was an early adopter.
Absolutely.
Of course, CFDDC was an early adopter. Like, those clubs that bit and took it on that first year in 2014. I mean, they deserve a huge shout out. There's more than the ones I've mentioned. I'd have to look them up. What?
Minnesota had one of the first
Yep,
events.
yep, Minnesota.
Canada? Did you say Canada? It's a big
Well, I said
state.
Calgary, but I think there was more than Calgary.
Yeah, I
can
went
look
out to
it up.
Canada 3 or 4 times in the first couple of years.
Yeah.
Regina,
Anyway,
shout out Regina.
yes, yes. Saskatchewan. Anyway, there were multiple clubs, and they deserve a shout out for, taking it on and helping.
Faith in us.
Right. And like their excitement about playing the games, spreading that on social media helped it, roll into something much bigger, quicker than we expected.
Yeah. Speaking of the games, what were the games? What were the first 3 games that we put on napkins? Anybody remember?
I mean, I think the one that went on the napkin at
Outback
was something like 4-way play. Like, I don't think it was exactly 4-way play, but it was it was what led to what 4-way play is, for sure.
Yeah. Right. 4-way fodder.
So
We had a
4-way
million
play.
ideas. Yeah, we've had a million ideas. Like we have ideas that we still haven't like carried out that we had on day one. Like I'm not even going to bring them up here just in case, but we had ideas that still haven't played out yet that probably will come to fruition someday. So I don't remember the napkins. I'm out on that conversation.
I don't know how
So
you could not remember the napkin.
I'll steer it away, but you guys can definitely steer it back. I do remember Kat's inspiration. Like, she really brought fragility to the front, And
Yeah.
I think Fragility, obviously one of our 3 original games, and is an absolute staple, right? I love. So I want to talk about the philosophy of that, because I always tell a story whenever I'm doing the judges classes about agility, and like how part of what we wanted to do from day one was to pull in the agility community for 2 reasons, and then you guys correct all the things I get wrong. There was this theory, right, Kat? I'm sure you guys heard it a lot. Jack, I know you dabbled in some agility back in your day. Um, that disc was dangerous. Agility was the legit safe sport, and disc was dangerous. And in our experiences, I don't know if you guys agree, but I will just say right now and then, in my experience, I have not seen many disc injuries, and I personally have seen more agility injuries. That's not a comparison of which one's more dangerous or whatever. It's just the reality of part of the reason we wanted to bring agility in is because of the background foundation of training that was already a core value in that dog sport. We wanted to introduce more training into our sport, and whether that came through the inspiration of agility, or whether it was just because, Jack, that was a big passion of yours and something that's always mattered to me, and Dre definitely has taken on becoming a high profile educator. We wanted to educate the community, and that is what helps keep our dogs safer. But the other side of that, Kat, is besides crossover sports, besides the training of the 2 things, we wanted to change that idea. We wanted to shift that perspective of that disc is dangerous. And so if agility people came over and they trained with us and worked with us, then they would say, oh, I see. Just like agility, just like any other sport, if I put in a few exercises, if I have a bit of an understanding and a knowledge, then this isn't so much dangerous as it is my lack of knowledge was the higher risk. And to balance that, the other piece was, and we needed to legitimize training. Like, you see how much they train in agility? Every single little piece of everything is trained. Where I think even still, when we were coming in to our own in the sport of disc training, it was still a lot about chasing the lure, right? It was a lot about just chasing after that disc and hoping something great happened at the end of it, and figuring it out as we went. So legitimizing training through agility, but also shifting that perspective of safety in the sport of disc.
So we
Yeah,
have foray play and fragility. What was our third one?
We wanted an easy win, right? So we wanted throw and go. Throw and go is an easy
There
win.
we go.
It's something everybody already played throughout the sport. So that was our tribute to the rest of the disc community. Like, listen, this is an easy way for you to come into UpDog. There's already a game, you don't have to learn anything new,
Gotta hook
really.
up.
Just throw it down the field and get a catch. And throw and go still, just like we've seen the success of the Toss and Fetch League. Though that game is still like, other than maybe 4-way play, the easiest entry into like the world of disc sports, especially UpDog.
Great with young dogs too that are starting in the sports. One of our suggested games for dogs that are not old enough to do some of the higher impact games as well. So throw and go is a great one. So we throw and grow for agility and four-way play as our first OG games.
and by the way, those 3 games, another thing that you guys put into the survey on topics was you wanted us to kind of talk about like why and how we made some of the different games and what our thought processes were behind that. And we'll be hitting those 3 games first, since those were the 3 games that started UpDog. And Jason, just to go back for a second on what you said about the training part of fragility, I think is really important. And something that has surprised me is when I do like beginner little weekend seminars or like a Disc Dog 101 or something like that, I often get folks that come in from agility. Like, I'll get 1 or 2 people that are, they've done agility with their dogs. And I think that there's this thought process out there that, just like you said, like there's a lot of training involved in this, there's a lot of training involved in this, but when I get to disc, it's just, do I know how to throw the disc? Like, I think that that's kind of the thought process. And when I talk with them about some of the things that they do in agility that they can also do in disc, they're like, oh my gosh, really? Oh my gosh, yes, this makes sense. But I just do think that there's this thing out there that many people think, especially from other dog sports, that there really isn't that much training involved in disc. You just throw the disc and your dog chases or they don't.
Well, and if they started in something like Toss and Fetch League, that is what they think, because that's what they're doing, you know?
Yeah, and not to get too far into throw and go, that'll come in our throw and go episode coming soon. But that's why throw and go is a little bit different than toss and fetch. But we'll talk about that later.
Well, Kat, real quick on that, on the frizz side, a lot of agility people we know, I've always made up numbers, right? I think like 35 to 40% of agility people throw a floppy disc as a reward to their agility dogs at the end of a run or while they're practicing or training. It's a high percentage that do throw an object as a reward. And probably where they were running into injuries was that was a leisurely or exercise thing they did in the backyard, but they did this, right? Or they threw it too high. And so
Yep.
I actually think UpDog's bringing in agility and focus on education has been successful. It has been a win in helping educate another community about the safety of something they were just doing leisurely in their backyard.
All right, so let's switch a little bit. And this should be kind of fun. So thinking back 10 years, if we were able to go back, would we do anything differently? Kat, you're smiling. Do you have something already in your head?
I'm just curious as to what the answers might be.
I love all the different,
Language, sir.
we really brought different personalities to all of this, like really different, right? And I think one of the greatest successes of UpDog so far has been the endurance of our core team. Even I know there's a resistance to calling us founders, but
that sounds cultish.
I guess it doesn't to me, but
Founders.
I don't know about your background, so I guess that's possible. But we've been pretty good friends. You know, we were really close, you know, while we lived in Florida. And obviously time and distance and all these things have shifted things, but the passion for UpDog has really kept us in. And I think a lot of things fall apart. There probably aren't many programs, professional, corporate, there aren't many programs in the world where 4 to 6 people, the core group, has stayed together and stayed engaged and involved in a program that they're passionate about. This many people, like, you guys know how hard that is. There's 6 of us. And as we know, even we're, you know, have our own dysfunctions. We are like herding cats amongst us. But for a dysfunctional cult, as you called us, Jack, I
This
think
podcast
we've done
is going downhill fast.
You can always
it's amazing. This is what the people want.
It is. It is what the people want. We have our own piles of dysfunction. We're just as dysfunctional as everyone else, but we're still here, I think, is the point you're getting to, is that we're all still here.
Like I'm proud of us. We've done a really amazing job of staying as a core group, and I think that's part of a reason for our success, why we're jumping into our 11th year.
I don't know what made me think of the story. It's sort of kind of related, but one of the things that popped up in my head while you were talking, Jason, is about how when we were deciding, like when we were officially forming the business and putting the business papers together, like who was going to have what title. And I remember whatever title I had at that time, like we were talking about like what everybody's roles would be. And I'm like, well, what am I going to do? Like, what's my job going to be? Which I find super hilarious at this point.
Looking back. Yeah. Yeah.
Have you do everything.
We all knew. We all knew.
We didn't, because we had no idea how big it was going to get that quick, you know?
All right, so the question was,
what would we do different?
Speaking
what
of
would you do differently?
I mean, honestly, I would say nothing, because then we wouldn't be where we are. Like everything that happened had to happen in place for a reason to be where we are now. So that's my little fatey fate-oriented answer.
We could say, remember when we tried to mail out the achievements?
That's
Yeah.
bad.
We failed at that pretty miserably.
We fail
For
at mailing
several-
things in general. We're just
Yeah.
bad. But now that Jack's
It's a tough
retired,
job.
hopefully that'll change.
He could be in charge of mailing.
I am an expert at the post office.
He loves the post
You will.
office.
Good.
That's
And
a rough one.
years to get him here.
So
I've been-
that one maybe. What else you got? I don't know.
I couldn't think of anything.
Yeah, that's a sleeper. Let's go back to stories. What else do you guys remember? What are some weird memories you guys have? I've got a couple confessions, right? And let's see if what your perspective is on these things. So I kept once we had moved from Florida to St. Louis, it was like Wild West. We were on our own all of a sudden out there. And I know we had the St. Louis debacle on Spaced Out.
Spaced
Remember
Out?
that one where yeah, so that was fun. And so now I get to correct that in judges meetings when people are like, "Oh, can't you do that?" Like, no.
But say what
that
that
was my
is.
fault.
That is that everybody knows what you're talking about.
So for a little while I don't know if I really want to because I don't want to put it out there like
You started
oh, you can do that.
You started
Well, the thing is,
You
you
just put it
can't.
out.
So
right.
Yeah, you cannot do this. But for a brief period of time in St. Louis, through the wizardry of Troy, because Troy was always coming up with strategies, he was like banking points in Spaced Out. So he would do like 4 of these 2 catch zones, and then he would do 4 of these 2 catch zones, and then voila, he would have 4 spaced outs, something like that, right? So sorry, 2 spaced outs, 2.
I don't know. This is St. Louis, so
Well, it
it's
wouldn't have
probably
been-
4.
it wouldn't have been 4
was 2.
because the record,
two.
like y'all scores were high, but they weren't astronomical. So
But there's a couple things like that happened in St. Louis. At least that's where I blame. For example, the wild card concept, right? I think came from when we were in St. Louis, and the numbers were unpredictable, and people were mostly coming to play for points, and so I think the wild card concept started there. I think the mulligan concept started there at
right?
Chili Dog. But there was one other thing that I'm always like, oh yeah, that was kind of my fault. Oh, I tell the story. I think it's true, so I can't wait to hear what you guys think. Spaced Out. So in Florida, Jack, you had a soundtrack for Spaced Out, and when we lived there, you played that soundtrack, and it was like cool. But in St. Louis, I didn't have a soundtrack, and so but I had the memory of yours in my heart. And so someone would get a Spaced Out, and I would go pew pew pew.
Pew, pew.
So I am pretty sure that the pew 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 sound that you hear all around the country, the world now, started in St. Louis. I think. What do you think?
It did.
I think
What do you think?
I think it may have started simultaneously or somewhat simultaneously multiple places because of that soundtrack. Because when I went to Calgary, there was a lot of pew pew pews. So,
Did
but I don't know.
Jason?
Did you train
Jason, I was
Calgary?
just gonna say, did he get them started?
Which
Yeah,
means
I went
it started before St. Louis, because Jason trained Calgary before y'all moved to St. Louis. So I don't know, Jason, you may have started it in 2014
In a different country.
in a different country.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I don't know that for sure. I just know I had to do it because I wasn't as cool as Jack. And so instead of playing a cool soundtrack, because Jack's the wizard on the DJ board, I just went pew pew pew, and then I added meow meow meow. So if you're listening out there, does anybody out there go meow 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 pew pew pew? Does anyone add the meows to that? Because that was definitely on me. If you add a meow to it. No, nobody. All right,
No.
fine. What
Maybe
else?
there-
What else do you
maybe.
guys remember?
Does anybody remember like when we decided rollers were good?
From the beginning.
Oh,
I know, but I don't
rollers
remember
were a
like
big
I
fight.
don't remember the conversation and like how I don't remember.
The thing I remember about rollers is that we were only going to allow them in level 1. We weren't going to allow them in level 2 because, rollers were easy and they were, for young teams and all that. And it was later after we saw all the cool strategies that we're like, you know what? Rollers everywhere.
Yeah, which I think is everyone loves,
Oh yeah.
and no one has any opinions about.
Nobody has an
I think
opinion.
the fact that, so look, rollers have been widely adopted, right, across the sport now, even more so. So UpDog gets some credit for sure. Like in Toss and Fetch League, you know, that's kind of a purist community. The people who started that are like Toss and Fetch purists, and they added rollers because they saw that was something that really made a difference for the people, for the community. I remember the roller conversation for me coming out of disc golf, right? We threw a lot of rollers in disc golf, and it just seemed to make sense that we added it. And in this one, you guys may disagree in this one. I remember that being a little bit of a fight. I wanted rollers. I think I introduced that conversation, and I think we hated it at first. What do you remember?
It's possible because
I don't remember at all, to be honest. I mean,
I think I don't remember if rollers were a thing before Babs joined on with us. I don't know that timeline, but I know that Babs's mantra early on was, you know, grandma needed to be able to play this game with her little dachshund or whatever.
yeah.
And so Yorkie. So if rollers weren't a thing, that definitely she would have contributed to that with her. Can a grandma play it with her Yorkie scenario? So
That's another one that I talk about all the time. I often talk about how at the start of in our early conversations, I remember saying I wanted my grandma to be able to play it. I wanted her to be able to walk out on that field and knock it on the podium, because maybe she would. She could be the best grandma. You guys don't know my grandma. She could be amazing. But I wanted her to be able to play. And I literally have said that in every training session, in every judges training, but in all of my private training sessions and stuff. I have been saying that since day one for UpDog. And I think part of that is the stigma, right? That UpDogs earned. I don't know, that UpDog got or was placed on us. Like UpDog's easy. Have you guys heard that? Oh, UpDog's easy. You should start there. That's the easy one. And I fight back against that every time because I don't think UpDog is easy. I think it's fun, and I think I wanted it to be playable by my grandmother, but I think it's very difficult to compete at the highest levels. Like there's this one guy, I don't know if you've heard of him. He's scoring like 100 points in Boom. You think that's easy? You go out and try it.
Well, and I think that's been what's opened the sport for people, is the fact that it's like the easy part is there's an easy entry level into hopefully all the games, if not all of them, most of the games. There's an easy entry level. And but there is also a very high ceiling, or no ceiling. Most of our games have no ceiling, where you're going to be able to take your skills as far as your skills can take you, and we're going to, if we find that your skills take you further than what we thought possible, we will make new achievements, which has happened in multiple games, right? Like for agility, we thought, man, if somebody can make it through 5 times and get catches, that would be the ultimate. Like
agility freak.
I know no one will ever do that, and now people just like laugh at that.
It's like 9.
Like, it's like
125 is nothing.
Right? Yeah, I mean 125 is still a good score, but for like our highest level for agility players, they would do that left-handed.
Yeah.
4 quads. We even had a bounty for 4 quads.
Yeah. Yeah, we had to change the score sheet because it only had 4 on it. We had to change it to 6.
Thanks, Troy.
Shout out
again.
Shout out to Troy again.
Yep, Troy Mole breaking 2 games.
That's a good one. What else?
Yeah, I think that I think the ease of entry is what makes it great for new players, but the leveling up and the achievements, and we tried to design every game so that there would be different strategies you could utilize to get points, and certain strategies die off at a certain point. Like certain strategies have a cap, like, hey, if you use this strategy, the most you'll probably ever score is this. But if you tweak that strategy and add this to it, then you can get even more points. So I really think it's 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 uh, it's welcoming on both sides, like for the high level player and the low level player. But I agree with you, Jason. Like for some reason, I think because it's ease of entry, it has some people say, oh, well, UpDog's easy. And that's cool. I'm glad it's easy. That way there, more people can start playing.
Right. That's kind
Yeah,
of,
bring it. You think it's easy? Bring it.
yeah,
Exactly.
that's kind of the
Exactly.
point on one end.
Also, Jack, I think we should touch on, and I attribute this one to you, that there was a philosophy from early on is that we wanted our games to teach skills, and all of those skills would come to Andrea's favorite word, freestyle. So you could take enough skills from each of the games that we played, and that was before we've added a couple new ones, right? But each game has its own objective. Like, oh, you will learn if you play this game well, you will learn this skill. And I think I don't. Do you guys know this that Steve with Jackson, and I remember talking to him about it, like even before he did freestyle, talking to him about freestyle. Oh, by the way, you can take your skills because he's. I don't know if you guys know this. Steve and Jackson are really good at UpDog games. They've done pretty well through the years. They took those skills and put them into freestyle. That they literally did their games. They played their game skills and put it into their probably very first freestyle routine. And I hope to hear Steve's perspective on that on the show one day about how that came to be. But that
Yeah,
was our goal, right?
Yeah, I've told people that story multiple times. And the first, I mean, I don't know that it was his first freestyle, but the first video I ever saw of Steven Jackson's freestyle, like you could see, oh, look,
Four-way
Mhm.
play.
there's four way. Look, there's time warp. Look, there's this. And
There's
it
two
was,
of them.
yeah, it was super cool. Like it was really cool to see all of our the purpose we put into the games, like just be like, here you go, because other people who were playing UpDog freestyle up to that point were probably already playing freestyle.
Right.
Steve was the first example of someone who grew up through UpDog and then played freestyle to use those skills and just put it on display like that. So it was super cool. I like to tell that story all the time.
Well, and that's why, I mean, from my perspective, that's why games like four-way play were kind of developed because again, the whole ease of entry, there was no such thing as ease of entry into freestyle. I mean, from my perspective, I went to this previous to UpDog, I went to our local club. There was toss and fetch or freestyle. Those were the only two games.
Yeah.
And from my perspective, it's like I stand on one end of the field with one disc and I throw back and forth to my dog, back and forth. And then I'm supposed to make this leap from there to now hold all these discs, get out there in the middle of the field, run around with your dog and do some cool stuff. And I'm like, wait, what? I've only been standing on this line throwing one disc. How can I go from there to here? And so I think that was always like our thought process was like, how do we make the ease of entry into this freestyle game easier? And, freestyle is, we've shortened it and we say freestyle because every organization says freestyle, but I think Jason was the one that added showcase to the end of our title. Freestyle Showcase is really the official name of our freestyle game. And that's because we really do think it is showcasing all of the skills that you and your dog have, like all of the skills that you and your dog have developed through practice, through gameplay, out there on the freestyle field when you do your 90 seconds or 2 minutes or whatever.
So I can feel that I can feel the natives getting restless, right? But there's a couple of things I definitely want to touch on real quick, and I'm sure there's some closing things you guys want to touch on. On ease of entry into freestyle, you guys have probably already talked about it in the podcast. I didn't watch those like the freestyle ones. I missed those. But you guys have introduced that UpDog X and are probably bringing live. I don't know all the details. Your big freestyle game, right? So there's an ease of entry for freestyle, right? And then I've got one in the works that I'm hoping will be our long-awaited entry-level freestyle game, which I hope to bring to you guys really soon, so you can do what you do and pick that apart. But I want to talk about one weird thing that happened, which was I was designing the website for UpDog, right? Putting weird little pieces together, and one was like mission vision on the website, right? And I don't remember if I even like here's our mission vision stuff. And then, we revised it and sent it back. I think I just sort of wrote stuff on the website. And then one day I remember Jack going, oh, hey, I read this stuff. This is my memory of it. But what that stuff was, do you remember? It was like, we were going to get on TV. We were going to have X number of this and X number of that. And was it last year when we hit ESPN, right? When we got on AKC TV and ESPN2, that we knocked out all of those. Like all of those visions were accomplished. Like we had hit all of our goals that we had written out. And so I hope that there's a future episode coming of like UpDog 10 years from now. What do we look like?
That
'Cause
was my
I would
final
be-
question.
There it is.
There you go.
That was my final question. Where is UpDog going in the next 10 years?
Oh man, that is an amazing question.
And
So
maybe
I think
that is an entire episode. I'm sure it could be.
Yeah,
It is.
actually, that's a good idea.
it is.
Let's
The only
hold
thing I
off.
would say, as an answer to that is bigger and better, right? That's just who we are. That's our makeup. We will be bigger and better in 10 years
Yeah,
because
we are not
our community.
Jason, we're not stopping until what happens to UpDiff.
There's a rock band at it.
That we will be the Bonnaroo
Yeah.
of Disc Dog championships or whatever. I want a Ferris wheel there. There needs to be a rock band.
Mm.
There needs
missed
to
this
be
part.
palm readings. There needs to be funnel cakes. All of these things.
We could just do it at a fair, like rent
Okay.
a side part next to a fair, and then we don't have to touch any of that stuff.
Listen, that's the great thing. We all have visions, and those visions and all the pieces that we have all contributed come together. And not only that, I wish we could talk more about all the organic pieces that have come together just from the community. The community outside of us has brought things into UpDog that we didn't even come up with, things that just happened. And I think that's so cool, and I expect that to continue in our next 10 years.
All right. Well, I think that's a great closing, and we've got lots of additional things that I think are going around in our heads for future episodes. So you guys, I'm sure we'll hear more about this to come. And as I shared with you at the very beginning, we'll have a history of UpDog episode with Babs Mahoney and one with Brian Batchelder. And Jason's already said he'd like to be back on the episode with Babs, so definitely invite him as well. And Dre, we got a new guest on here, though, and you know what that means, that we have to put them through the ringer. They have to go through the time warp challenge.
All right, let me
So,
put
Jason, we have a time warp challenge for you. And
Okay.
you've listened to a few podcasts. You know what this is all about, right?
Mhm.
All right. We got 10 questions for you, 60 seconds.
Mhm.
Don't think too much about any answer, just whatever comes to your head. As long as it's clean, go ahead and share that.
All
Ready.
right, you ready for a countdown? You're asking first question, Jack.
Okay, gotcha.
Ready, set, go.
Jason, if you had to sing karaoke right now, what song would you pick?
Living on a prayer.
What's the worst job that you've had?
Pass.
Where do you want to go on your next vacation?
Hawaii.
Do you believe that alien abduction happens?
No.
What is your most favorite UpDog game?
7-Up.
Seconds. Who's your first celebrity crush?
Michelle Gellar, I think. Buffy.
What is your favorite dog disc to throw?
My favorite would be the supersonic taffy.
Do you prefer to drive or be in a passenger seat? 8 seconds.
I'm okay either way.
Describe your fashion style in one word.
3 seconds.
Whatever.
Time.
All right, you got 9 of them, Jason. 9 and a pass. So the 10th question, video games or board games?
Oh man, I've been playing so many board games lately. I'm 50-50 on that one.
Like games.
What have you been playing lately? What board game?
So I was playing a ton of Doomlings, and then we played, and then we played a bunch of something Mars, not colonizing, something else Mars. And then I've been on a Katana streak again. So I know you guys love Katana.
We played that a little bit. I like Carcassonne better than Katana. Have you played that?
Did I play that with you guys one time, actually, at Skyhounds or UpDiff, maybe? One and an Airbnb with
You might
Allison,
have. Yeah.
and April was there.
Yeah, probably then. Yeah, Carcassonne's
But I don't
great.
remember that word, though. Carcassonne.
But
So yes, probably.
if you like card games and you've never played it, Skull King is amazing.
I think we've made him play it.
Yeah, I don't know who we know well that we haven't made play Skull King before, but anyway.
Skull King.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Adding it to my list.
All right. Well, now we all have a new game to play. And in the meantime, thank you so much, Jason and Kat, for being our guests today. And as always, Jack, for me, my co-host on today's podcast. Don't forget, if you guys do have ideas for different topics you want to hear, that thread is still open on the UpDog discussion page. So go ahead and drop your ideas on there. We're writing them down. We definitely have a nice list of topics we can cover now. We're so grateful you guys sent over your ideas. Keep them coming. That thread's open, and we're going to keep on writing down all your ideas.
And also, we will likely be reaching out to many of you in the UpDog community because we think you'll make great guests given some of the topics. If you see a topic on there and you feel like, hey, I've got a lot to say about that, please reach out to one of us. Please reach out to Dre or I, and we'll get you connected onto the podcast. We would love to have you. Thanks, Dre, for co-hosting with me today. This was a fun one, kind of reliving some history and learning some things that I had forgotten again. And Jason, thanks for coming on. Kat, thanks for coming on. And we hope to see all of you guys on an UpDog field soon.
In the meantime, be kind to each other.
And be kind to your animals. Talk to you later. We'd still just be at Outback talking shit about freestyle.